Welcome to Muslim Apologetics Australia. So back on the topic, more women in hell or heaven. This is a quick video. Remember, I was against their article at Muslim Matters, but what I wanted to do is just a little bit of digging to see the authors behind this article. Refer to part 1 of this video where we've refuted the claim where they tried to downplay the hadith where there are more women in hell, and they try to put a twist to it. So basically the publisher, the author of this, we're going to look a little bit deeper on who this individual is. So we're first going to go to, it says, before we go to see who Zainab bint Yunus is, we're going to first go to who, because this person, when they wrote this article, they said this article was reviewed by Sheikh Jamal ud-deen. So we're going to go to see who Sheikh al-Din is. So let's have a look here. Okay, it's another niqabi sister. We'll click on that one. Okay. It says, who is Sheikh Jamal ud-Din? Has a BA in Fiqh and Usul al-Fiqh from Medina International University, and has been a teacher of both the Quran and various Islamic sciences, Masjid al-Sunnah in Sydney for more than 14 years. So this individual, female, niqabi, remember what we said before, most of the feminists now are now the niqabis and the hijabis. Wallahi, this is how much the tentacle, this is the last place you'd think feminism would go to the niqabis. Okay, it reached the hijabis, but it's reaching the niqabis now, right? So look, she's an Australian revert to Islam. That should already be a warning sign. Alarm bells, red flag there, okay? And I'm not saying be suspicious of all reverts, but red flags. You need to understand, when people accept Islam, sometimes they forget to let go of their luggage, their cultural baggage, even if they wear a niqab. Pakistan, majority Muslim nation. Do you know who gives the mahr in a Muslim nation? The men do, not the women. The men take the mahr. The women pay for the mahr. The women themselves give the mahr. The men take the mahr. When it should be the other way around. Is in Islam, man gives the mahr for the woman when he marries. There in Pakistan, opposite. Where did this come from? Came from Hindu culture. In Hindu culture, the woman pays for everything in the bridal. So although the Pakistanis have accepted Islam, they broke away as they were first originally Indians, part of India. When they accepted Islam, they could not live with the Hindus. They broke apart. They went to Pakistan. And in Pakistan, they set up their own nation, their own constitution. But they did not let go of some of that Hindu baggage. So, a revert sister in Islam, when they accept Islam, they can't let go of that baggage, that feminism baggage, right? So look, she was a revert to Islam from Australia. She attained a BA languages degree major in Arabic from Western Sydney University. Right? Look, Habibi, she's part of the have a look closely here. She's part of the council. Look, that's her there. She's part of the brothers' council. Is she putting her hand on another brother's hand? I'm not sure. I don't know, maybe that's her husband, so I can't really judge. But this is the council. Among the men, there's no segregation. No segregation. She's in the same room as with the men. Yeah? Their feminism. This is their feminism. Okay, so I had a look at Jamal ud-deen. She's got a podcast called Female Scholarship or Feminism. And watch how they are literally enthusiastic about feminism. Listen to what she says. Listen to what she says. How they even speak about men whinging about women. Have a listen.
These skills, I now need to work on a larger platform. You know what I mean? I feel like I've got so much, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, I ask Allah for that, to give back to the ummah. And I'm not going to shrink for people if they don't like me coming out of my shell and sort of being more prominent and having a more active role in the ummah, because I feel I have a responsibility before Allah, right? Absolutely. I actually feel I have a responsibility before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially at this time when so many women are struggling, right?
Oh, for sure.
So many women are struggling and we're complaining.
More than ever.
I don't understand. Like today I was in one of my halaqat for Quran, and the sister was telling me that her husband's on this WhatsApp group, and apparently all these men were complaining about, look at all the women today, they're all lacking iman, and they were having this whinge about the women having all this lack of iman. All right, so what are we doing? What are we doing to help revive this iman in our sisters? Are we supporting our female teachers? Are we getting behind our female teachers, or are we criticizing them? Are we not opening up platforms for them? Are we, trying to pull them down? Like, we are part of the solution, and you need to start seeing us as part of the solution instead of, unfortunately, very sadly, some people over-scrutinize
the problem.
And that's really sad to see. Like, you need to open your eyes and...
Completely.
Yeah, they need to open their eyes and realize what is the state of our ummah right now. You're complaining about feminism, you're complaining about all this dalala that the sisters are going through, and yet I don't see you giving proper support to those people, those very people, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, I ask Allah for that, who could be the very answer to that problem.
Yes. Thank you.
And so what is the answer? It's Jamal ud-deen. You have to support a female scholar, because apparently a female scholar is the one that's going to reach out to these Muslim women. Because the men couldn't do the job. The Muslim men, the sheikh, they couldn't do it. Now you have to stand away. We need to have Jamal ud-deen to speak to these women. Jamal ud-deen to speak. Do you see how feminism has crept into her, right? Right? She is the flag bearer now. Women don't want to listen to Muslim men and sheikhs. They're creating problems. How are we going to fix the situation, the lack of iman in the sisters? We need them. We need to raise a Muslim sister who's a scholar that can speak to them. Right? And this goes back to the feminist ideology. You'll hear many feminist women complain, say, as men, you can't understand the difficulties what we're going through because you're a man, you can't understand woman problems. This is the same excuse they use to shut down men telling women what to do, using the Quran and Sunnah. So now we move that away. We're going to facilitate these feminists with a Muslim voice, and it has to be now a female voice to reach out to them. See how they've bought into feminism. They've actually bought into feminism. And this is the problem. Obey your husbands. No longer we don't obey the husband's advice anymore. No. Female gives an advice, we will go to seek female advice. And now there's too many teachers that they say, we got all the female teachers, we need to raise the female teachers. See, I'm telling you guys, they will swear that they're not feminists, but they will preach feminist ideology.
Right now, you're complaining about feminism, you're complaining about all this dalala that the sisters are going through, and yet, I don't see you giving proper support to those people, those very people, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, I ask Allah for that, who could be the very answer to that problem.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, like if
that's
we can do a mic drop right now.
I'll be honest with you, that's one of the main reasons I stepped up, for that very reason, to answer the call to this problem. But unfortunately, when I did that,
Yep. No, I'm
Even
so happy
I-
you do this.
Subhanallah. So, yeah, alhamdulillah.
Now, that is
To answer the call to this problem. But unfortunately, when I did that,
Yep. No, I'm
Even
so happy
I-
you do this.
subhanallah. So, yeah, alhamdulillah.
Now, that is absolutely a huge, huge issue that we are seeing where, all these Muslim men complaining about Muslim women this, Muslim women that, but then they are not the ones uplifting female scholars and students of knowledge because on one hand, as you said, they're complaining about feminism and this, that, and the other, but then when a Muslim woman who is traditionally trained and educated and trying to uphold the deen and trying to improve the state of the ummah, really, the entire ummah, they're the first ones who are like, why is she coming to the masjid? Why is she talking so much? Why is she doing this? Why is she doing that? And they don't realize, or I don't know if it is that they don't realize, maybe they do, and it's just, there's so many factors to it, there's like the ego blow, there's the sense of, wait, if the women start doing dawah, what about us? Like, are we going to be pushed to the sidelines? Or how is it showing us up for our failings? There's just a lot of unfortunate factors behind it, but at the end of the day, it just makes the problem so much worse. If you're going to start trashing female scholars and students of knowledge for the very valid and necessary work that they're doing, how do you expect the ummah to get any better with these issues that women especially are facing and dealing with? I think a lot of it has to do as well with the fact that when you have women in positions of teaching and educational leadership, it casts a very harsh light on the realities of the shortcomings of much of the quote-unquote male dawah over the last who knows how long, whether it's, preventing women from going to the masjid or preventing access to knowledge in certain cultures or certain communities. And that, again, really highlights that the problem is not that women are innately evil and innately drawn to, dodginess, but it's the fact that they are missing something very vital in their spiritual education and spiritual guidance. Why is that? Because it hasn't been provided to them. It hasn't been given to them.
Notice how she supported the idea. She was saying that, women are innately evil. Remember the article, how I responded to the Muslim Matters article? These two, I think it's actually both these sisters, they're the ones that wrote the article and published it where they believe that women aren't majority in hellfire. They can't accept this. Both of these two. And see the attack. They're using feminism. I'm telling you, they're feminists. 110% they're feminists. Listen to this. Listen to their feminism, how outrageous it starts to get. Listen what they say.
Spiritual education and spiritual guidance. Why is that? Because it hasn't been provided to them. It hasn't been given to them as an option. It hasn't been upheld to them as a positive example. Unfortunately, as you know so well, there's just been so much negativity behind Islamic education of women, and it's often just reduced to issues of hijab and a husband's rights over his wife. And when that's the status quo, when that's the standard...
Listen. Apparently, when men preach, it's only about the hijab, and it's about Muslim women obviously obeying their husbands and the rights they have to give their husbands. Oh my God, this is laughable. Now, guys, on a serious note, this is why the men, unfortunately, probably fear you coming on stage. They don't want you to preach your feminism. They don't want you to preach your feminism because your feminism is against all of those things. Listening and obeying the husband. Listening and obeying that the hijab is mandatory. You're against this. You're part of free choice and because you're part of the Australian Western secular system, liberal system. That it is too harsh that a man mandates the hijab for women. Damn it. It's true.
A lot of extra pressures on women.
Listen to this part.
The pressures that non-Muslim women are going through, then just imagine for Muslim women, what kind of pressures that they're under. So, if you're not, you need to provide solutions to this. You can't just keep saying, well, we're just going to have all these, with respect to our male mashaykh, great respect to all our male mashaykh, but we need other solutions now. We need to look at other solutions. You know what I mean? That worked in the past, but we're living in a different time now.
I would even say it's not even.
You know what the living in a different time is? Living into a different time is that you're bending your backs to feminism, because feminists are looking at Muslims and Islam and they're saying there is over-representation of men. There's over-representation of men. So we need to have now women. We need to have women, because you look at the media. Before it was over-representation of men. Now we're having women. Look at the AFL. We've got the Australian Men's League, but we're going to have a female league as well. Not that the female league can compete with the men's league. No one even really watches the female league. But we have to have a female league because we need to prove equality. It doesn't matter about the quality of the game. We need to prove equality. And that's how it is now with these feminist movements. It's the Muslim sisters are fed up with listening to men. They hate hearing it from men. Right? They hate hearing the truth, even if because it's coming from a man. Because they're living lives where they're being oppressed by their husbands, and when they hear a sheikh talking, it like reflects their husband speaking to them, and they don't like that. Even if what he's saying is factually true. So now what we need to do is we need to represent Muslim women, because this is the solution now. Again, giving into feminism. We need to have equal representation.
Even that it worked. Even say it's not even that it worked in the past, because in the past we had such an amazing history of female scholarship, and we had these environments of female da'wah that was strong and vibrant and helped knit a community together and helped build that foundation of a stronger ummah. We have, everybody from the Sahabiyat to Amra bint Abdul Rahman to Nana Asma'u to Zainab al-Ghazali, right? Like every generation, every century had in many ways their own culture of female scholarship that really helped their communities flourish. And I feel like many of the issues that our community is dealing with today, it's because we stopped upholding that sunnah. It's because we no longer have that culture of female knowledge and female education. And there's a lot of lip service.
Those women back in the past, they didn't preach feminism. That's why they prospered. This idea of feminism is a new phenomenon. This is why the Muslim men, the ulama and the clerics are reluctant to invite the females on stage, because their backbone is built on feminism. It's true. It's true. Because these two wouldn't have written an article proving that females aren't a majority in hellfire. Right? They're a majority in heaven, which still proves inequality. Right? This is why. Listen to their man-hating. They're claiming that we Muslim men are refusing education, Islamic education for our wives. Listen to the lies, okay? Have a listen.
Have that culture of female knowledge and female education. And there's a lot of lip service. Remember like all the early 90s and 2000s out about women's rights in Islam, and women will raise the next generation. Okay, but you're not educating your women, so how they're going to raise the generation of like Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi is when you're making sure that they barely know the basics of their deen, when you're stifling them to such an extent. As Sheikh Akram Nadwi always says, the Quraysh used to bury their girls.
Look at the lies. Look how they're man-hating. This is literally their man-hating. Wallahi, they are full. Imagine us men started speaking about women like this. Imagine us men started degrading women like this. Wallahi, what would they do? What would these feminists do? Look how they've generalized that us Muslim men, we don't want our women to be educated in Islam. Imagine, look at the lies they're inventing.
Alive physically, and the Muslims for so long have been burying their girls alive intellectually and spiritually. So
look at the extent they go into their man-hating agenda. Listen to this.
Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi is when you're making sure that they barely know the basics of their deen, when you're stifling them to such an extent. As Sheikh Akram Nadwi always says, the Quraysh used to bury their girls alive physically, and the Muslims for so long have been burying their girls alive intellectually and spiritually.
So we Muslim men are burying our women alive intellectually and spiritually. Allahu Akbar. Look at this. They're saying this about men. They're saying about this about all the Muslim men. Imagine that we are burying our wives spiritually and intellectually. Imagine the non-Muslim kafirs hearing this. This is why we say this aggressive feminism is actually creating apostasy, turning people off Muslim men. This is their agenda here, to man hate. Have a look, this is a lecture that they uploaded.
And spiritually.
So yeah, look, when I meant the past, I wasn't talking about the distant past, because absolutely I agree with you. I was talking about the not so distant past, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like say 20 years ago, or but I 100% agree with you. And this is what I think we need to recognize the importance of reviving female religious leadership is very, very important to have. Yeah. I mean, what I feel has happened to the Muslim community over time, it's like, with all respect and everything to obviously single parents and everything like that, but we know that ideally a Muslim family wants to have a mother and a father, right? A mother figure and a father figure. That's what really creates the balance. If you only have a father figure, that's going to have a different type of balance. If you only have a mother figure, that has a different balance, right? So
absolutely.
For a long time, it's like the ummah, or in certain places, not everywhere, because like as I said, in Saudi, in Egypt, you can find plenty of female scholars, right? You can actually find a lot of female scholars in those places, and women flock to their lessons, right? But other places, not so much. But when you've only got the male figure being presented to the sisters, there's no female figures. It's like, basically, to me, it's a bit like having a family where you've only got a father.
You
don't have the maternal voice. You don't have the maternal role model there. And I think that's what we need to revive. Like, you think about the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Think about the Sahabiyat. Like, they had Aisha, they had Salama, they had Habiba. Like, they had all these female role models, female leadership that was there. It's different than male leadership. We're not saying that female leadership is the same. We have to always put in all these disclaimers because if that gets picked up on your video, well, now see, that just proves everything doesn't matter.
Those feminists are trying to take over.
Like, you have to recognize that female leadership is very, very important, but it's not going to look the same as male leadership. No one's saying that, but it needs to be there. We need the maternal voice. It's very important. And this is what I believe.
Imagine this, folks. How come there aren't female prophets? If female leadership was so important, why didn't Allah send also a female prophet? Why? She's like, there was Aisha radiallahu anha who was a leader, and there was they weren't leaders in that sense. She did dawah privately in her own home. And when the men approached her, she would speak to them behind the cloth and give them dawah behind the curtain and so forth. And that was after the Prophet ﷺ died, because she was the most knowledgeable after the Prophet ﷺ. But when the Prophet ﷺ was there, it wasn't known that she was speaking behind the curtain and giving dawah to the men as well. That was the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's duty. Most of the Sahaba grew up on the early generation of Muslims grew up on the Prophet ﷺ's dawah. Aisha radiallahu anha came many years later. Aisha radiallahu anha wasn't even there. In the first 10, 20 years, whatever it was. She wasn't even there. What about all the other prophets? Were their wives leaderships? Again, guys, this is again, I'm not against female preachers. You want to preach? Yes. You want to speak to women? If it helps your cause where you could reach out to women, fair enough. But what you need to understand is what the women want from you. What these women want from you is a feminist voice. They want a feminist voice. They want you to sympathize with their feminism. This is why they want to listen to you. Right? You give them female feminism, they're going to listen to you. You tell them that, no, majority of women aren't in hell, they're going to want to listen to you. You preach to a majority of the women are in hell, they're not going to listen to you. They want the feminism from you. They only want the feminism from you. And that's the problem. You have to twist the Quran and twist Islam in order for you to gain their attention. Let's be frank. Now listen to the deception here.
But you have to recognize that female leadership is very, very important, but it's not going to look the same as male leadership. No one's saying that, but it needs to be there. We need the maternal voice. It's very important. And this is what I believe is going to bring back the health for the ummah. You know, Absolutely. This is going to heal. This is part of our healing process. Like, you're worried about your sisters losing their man. You're worried about your sisters going to feminism. I'm telling you, we need prominent and strong maternal voices, which inshallah has to come through the female scholarship, the female leadership. And this.
You're afraid of your wives going to feminism? Send them to us. We will preach to them that majority of the women aren't in hellfire. This is what their articles say. They reject the hadith, they misinterpret the hadith, so they cater for the feminism. Bring them to us. We will fulfill them with feminism.
And this is, I believe, the greatest way to heal these wounds that are almost going through. Absolutely. To come through the female scholarship, the female leadership. And this is, I believe, the greatest way to heal these wounds that are almost going through.
Absolutely. SubhanAllah. It makes me think too of, again, so many wisdoms behind the necessity and importance of female scholarship and female religious leadership is because, as you said, number one, having those female role models, having an example of, again, just like spiritual guidance through the lived experience of somebody who is like you, who understands the process and the existence of women is so different, right?
Absolutely.
And then, we have all these other issues where there's like sexual abuse taking place between, astaghfirullah, like men in dawah and their female students, or, men who are just so completely disconnected from like the reality of women's lives, like,
See, remember what I was going to? That point, look, men are rapists now, more men hating. Men days are sexually abusing their students now. Look, more men hating. And remember what I said? Only women can understand women's problems. So why did the Prophet ﷺ come? Why did Allah only send the Prophet then? If Allah knew that only women understand women's problems, why did He send only male prophets? With men interpreting the Quran. Wasn't the stories of the hadith enough motivation? Wasn't the lessons of the Sahaba enough motivation? That now you need Muslim leadership. And this is a cover-up, guys. This is a cover-up. Their objective, again, is to fulfill leadership positions. Not because they want to have women representation, because we need also listen to Muslim scholars. They want their own manipulation. They need a platform. Remember, Ummah Jamila said, we need a bigger platform now. We need a bigger platform to spread our feminism. So where can we do it? We can do it by manipulating, playing the victim. Oh, there's not enough female scholarship, there's not enough female leadership in the Muslim nations there are, but not in the West. So we need female representation because we need to reach out to all those Muslim women. If we don't reach out to those Muslim women, how are we going to guide them away from feminism and disbelief? Right? Because they want their own position of power. Their own position to use that to weaponize that. To weaponize and use that position to reach out to these women. And how are they going to do it? We need to fool the Muslim imams and the clerics, we need to fool them to say, look, we need a female voice to reach out to them. Right? It's like a wolf in sheep's clothing. She comes as a wolf in sheep's clothing. This is what it is. All I heard was man-hating here. They even had to mention sexual abuse. Men are the sexual abuse, the predators. Wallah. They had to include that in this discussion. Have a listen to this part. Listen carefully.
Sometimes you get those outrageous, bizarre fatwa about like periods or pregnancy, and you're like, have you read a biology book? Those are just some examples, but there are so many other reasons and wisdoms behind having this female leadership. And
have a listen. They're discrediting, mocking, saying Muslim men speaking about menstrual cycle, Muslim men speaking about pregnancy. She's saying, have you heard that weird fatwa? She's like, have you read a science book? This is the reason why we need female representation, because only females can talk about menstrual cycle. Only females can understand menstrual cycle. Only females can understand pregnancy. Really? So are you saying the ones who came up with understanding female pregnancy and menstrual cycle, were they female scientists? All your science books are probably written by men, by male gynecologists, male physicians, male biologists, male scientists. And here you're discrediting men. Oh, how can men tell us about pregnancy? How can men tell us about the science behind menstruation? Only we can feel. But notice, these feminists, they always tell men how we should behave. They always like to talk about our issues. They always like to talk about men's biological developments. They always like to talk about how men are overprotective and, they're jealous. They like to talk about our emotions as if they understand our emotions. They like to always talk about how, our polygamous issues, how it's just about lust. It's just about sexual fantasy. Well, you can't understand our position then, because you can't speak on polygamy, because it's not relative to you where you're engaging in this. Only men can talk about polygamy because we can understand it more than you. So why do you interfere in men's issues? Why do you decide for us what is halal and haram when it comes to polygamy? Oh, men can only do polygamy because polygamy is based on, a lot of men dying in wars. That's when polygamy was made legal. So you're giving your own woman's emotions. You're giving your own interpretation based on your emotions of jealousy. So you have no right then to speak about polygamy.
When bringing up these issues and kind of pushing back, and then in the beginning they were kind of sidelined and everybody was like, oh, they're just feminists, they're just this, they're just that, and ignored them. But now you have like more and more women who are coming forth, questioning, challenging, seeking better answers, and now it's a movement that nobody can ignore.
So the thing is, again, I'm commenting on.
So notice, they want better answers. What is better answer? Don't say women are in hellfire as a majority. We need to give better answers now.
More from my perspective here in Australia, because I don't really see that has become so much of a threat here, right? Compared to other countries. Like, I know US, it's a lot more of an issue, maybe Canada especially the liberalism thing over there. But with us, no, it's not so much of an issue. However, the problem is that the discussions all started online, and then they've crept into the normal everyday society, and it started to affect relationships. Because, instead of seeing the real feminists as your concern, okay, like the ones that are preaching anti-Islamic things that we cannot accept from the Sharia, instead of focusing on those ones, it has, like I've brought this up before, it's become what I call almost a witch hunt, where it's now being projected on everyday Muslims. Like things that if I had brought that up 25 years ago, you wouldn't have said anything. You would never have called me a feminist back then. But now, you know, certain things you say, it's now everything's framed as being part of the feminist movement. You know, so it's actually quite toxic. This type of you know, look at sisters in such a way is actually so toxic. It's very destructive. I see it as
So toxic. Notice this is another feminist word that they always use, a feminist. When they try and attack the brothers, they say you're toxic. You're toxic. You know, toxic masculinity. So toxic masculinity. Okay. This is another. And notice they're all saying, "Oh, you know, we're again." And this, they all swear that they're not feminists. They all swear they're feminists, but they write articles proving that women are not the majority in Jahannam.
It's very destructive because already women were struggling to kind of meet the standards of the Muslim woman that she's supposed to be, you know, with her hijab, how it's supposed to be, and all of these things, right? But now it's not just about that anymore. Now it's about like, now I have to try to meet these standards of like, am I speaking in a way that wouldn't be construed as being towards a feminist, you know, what they perceive as being, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, what on earth is this? Like, too much pressure.
From, like, legitimate issues, it ends up detracting from addressing, like, very serious problems in the community that we do need to take care of from an Islamic Shari'i perspective. And then it's completely shifting it all into, as you said, like, this projection of everything is feminist and everything is this and everything is that, and reacting to it in a really knee-jerk reaction, really, as opposed.
Knee-jerk reaction. This is another word they use against toxic male masculinity. Knee-jerk reaction is another key word feminists use. Remember that one.
To like a measured out, thoughtful one, which, you know, should be like, look, as Muslims, is this something that we're supposed to be upholding or not? Yes? Okay, then we need to take care of it, right? As opposed to being triggered and being like, oh my God, now that I've been challenged, now that I am perceiving that this is a challenge to the Sharia as opposed to culture or, you know, some kind of ingrained ideas about what Islam is or isn't, it ends up just derailing the entire conversation completely.
Yes, it's just a very toxic type of suspicion, and this time it's because I lived through, you know, obviously I lived through the 90s, and, you know, when we were going through all the, you know, takfiri type of, you know, and madkhali and all that, and everyone was suspicious of each other. Like, you basically had to say, like, people would ask you, do you believe, this is how petty it got, you know, do you believe the king is a Muslim or a non-Muslim? If you say that he's non-Muslim, then you're on the haq, you know, but if you say he's a Muslim, you're a madkhali, you know. So, but there was a lot of suspicion back then, and it was all like, and I just see this reminds me so much of that time of where, you know, and it was almost like you had to practically prove yourself that you're not in the wrong camp, you know. This time it's all being projected on women. That's what I've noticed.
And so that's extra dangerous when you think about it because it's found, like, I feel like there are a lot of women who are seeking the truth and may not always be articulating certain things just the right way that other people want to hear it. But then because of this projection, because of these assumptions, you know, it could end up pushing them even further away. You know,
that's exactly what I believe is happening.
Closer to the deen. But when you attack people indiscriminately and say, well, as a woman, because you've asked this question or because you've expressed this thought, well, you must be one of those feminists, therefore we're not going to deal with you, we're going to, you know, ostracize you. Right? Like, this kind of suspicion is truly an injustice that we do.
Isn't it interesting they talk about suspicion, but they start talking about men raping their female students. So they talk about suspicion. They're like, oh, these men are being suspicious of our feminist values. They think that we're feminists. So they constantly attack us and try and connect us with feminism. They say all these men are suspicious about us. But now they project suspicion that we're all rapists. We're all potential rapists. She had to bring up the idea that some of the female students were sexually abused. were sexually abused. So why did she have to bring that up? Again, to create suspicion. So listen to the double standard narrative. They attack us of being suspicious of any Muslim women that questions, and they're afraid of being labelled as a feminist. But here, they're creating suspicion amongst men on a dawah channel talking about women being sexually abused as if we're like the Catholic Church. That's why the sisters now are afraid, wallahi, to drop their children at a male Quran class teacher. Wallahi, I got a call not too long ago. A sister said she has an option of taking her kids to a Quran class, a tutoring class, but it's a female teacher, but she's charging money. Something like $500 a month, whatever. And I said to her, why don't you take her to another class, because that Quran class, men are teaching it and it's for free. You know what she said? Do you know what she said? She said, yes, I know it's free, but I don't want to take my children there because, they're female students, they're young children, female students. I don't want to take them into male teachers because God forbid if something happens. So who creates this suspicion? She's talking about suspicion. Who created this suspicion now? Yous are creating suspicion. Your channel's creating suspicion of men. Even our alims are attacked now. That sisters are now refusing to take their female daughters to male teachers. But the same sisters wouldn't have a problem of visiting a male doctor. Suddenly suspicion goes away. Suddenly, it's a doctor. How can you think dirty of a doctor? They'll promote. Yes, there's no issue. A male doctor treating a female. They'll issue. Because, the Sahaba, remember Aisha radiallahu anha used to run through the battlefield and she was treating the wounded Sahaba in the open field. And they compared this to a doctor's private room. Yeah? Keep listening. Have a listen to this. Listen to the feminism. Come more out now. Come more express. Listen.
And say, well, as a woman, because you've asked this question or because you've expressed this thought, well, you must be one of those feminists. Yeah. Therefore, we're not going to deal with you. We're going to, ostracize you. Right? Like, this kind of suspicion is truly, truly an injustice that we do to fellow believers.
We really need male leadership that can step back and look at this with wisdom.
All you male leadership, you've got to step back now. Move out of the way. We've had enough of you. Move back. Imagine Aisha radiallahu anha telling Umar ibn Khattab, Ali radiallahu anhu, the other Umar ibn Khattab, Uthman, Ali, Ibn Abbas, telling them to step back. We need Aisha to come forward. You guys step back now. We need the female representation. We need the females to talk now. Can you imagine them talking like this? Oh, but then they'll say, oh, brother, are you comparing today's Muslim brothers to Umar ibn Khattab and Ali radiallahu anh and Abu Bakr? And so, well, hang on a minute. Weren't you comparing yourself to the female representations of the past, like Aisha radiallahu anha? Weren't you? Why the double standards now? Have a look. Apparently they're the wise ones. The females are now the wise ones. Listen.
Really need male leadership that can step back and look at this with wisdom. You know what I mean? And we need the wise voices now to realize what's the best direction to go, and not feel threatened. They need to support because there's no way women are going to try and do what men are doing. Like, we have different lives. We have completely different lives than men. We're not going to be able to do what they do.
Like, personal priorities are often very different.
When I look at my sheikh, for example, the things that he's able to do, that mashallah may protect him, his energy, like he gets up in the morning, he leaves like 7 o'clock, he's down there at the center, he's, you know, he does teaching all day. Like, I teach 4 to 5 days a week.
Did you notice how she said my sheikh? Was that sheikh a male or a female? Where did you learn your din from? Was it from females or males? Notice how she's become a great wise woman. She understands the din. She accepted Islam. She's now very knowledgeable apparently. She understands Islam. She worked out really well. Was her teachers female? She keeps referring to her sheikhs as being male. Right or wrong? Right or wrong? What is she going to say? What are you going to say to that? Listen, she'll say my sheikh and his. Listen, she uses the word his. Listen.
Have built yourself well, right? You need to have built your knowledge well and built your family well. I think that it is important to have that base. And I mean, even with my sheikh, the same thing. He did build his family very well, right?
My sheikh, he built himself well. Her sheikh is a man. Her sheikh is a man. Right? But she's saying we can't have man sheikh anymore. We need to move man sheikh out of the way. We need women sheikh to teach women. Oh, this is too funny. Sorry, this is too funny. Let's go.
This is so, like, it's just really sad that we're playing into the stereotypes that non-Muslims talk about Muslims. Yep. Like, I would not expect this from Muslims. You know, I'll be honest with you. I would not expect this. Mm-hmm. No. And
you're talking about stereotypes of Muslims when you were speaking about men sexually abusing their female students. You're pointing fingers and criticizing Muslim men for stereotyping and using the same Islamophobic ideology against Muslim women. And you're saying we're stereotyping, and here you are stereotyping Muslim men, categorizing them as sexual predators. Shame on you.
The fact is, you're actually playing into the rhetoric, the very criticisms that the West, for example, will have against Muslims, that, they don't respect women. You're playing into that by doing that.
Well, what was the sister you're talking to doing when she was talking about sexual assault of Muslim women by their shuyukh? Well, why didn't you condemn her? She's your friend. She's a female. You wouldn't condemn her. You wouldn't judge her with the same stick, would you? Shakal talk. Shaka talk with Umma Jamila dun, hey?
Because a lot of the younger males are feeding on this red pill. They're feeding on a lot of this red pill, what do you want to call it? Rhetoric.
So younger males, look at the stereotyping. She speaks about stereotyping. She's again attacking. Now the male men aren't enough, the adults. The younger males are now taking the red pill and they're digesting it, and apparently they're becoming women haters now. Look how she's now slandering and making judgments on the young men, the young generation. Listen. Everything about this conversation, everything from start to finish, 1 hour conversation, it was man-hating conversation.
And I feel like it's influencing them in the way that they're dealing with women. And it's concerning me a lot. I'm not just concerned about women turning to feminism now. I'm actually concerned about the way that men...
Listen, she said, I'm not concerned about women turning into feminism. Did you hear this? Did you catch that? She's not concerned about Muslim women turning into feminism. What is she concerned about?
Men are being influenced by a lot of this rhetoric that's coming really from Western isn't it? It's from Western.
It really is,
thinkers.
and it's a result of like the skewed, unhealthy, toxic environments that have been fostered in secular environments, and then it's being brought over into the Muslim sphere, and it completely goes against the ayat of,
Notice the Muslim men, the young generation, they're being affected by secular ideology. That's what concerns her the most. That's what concerns her. She doesn't talk about secularists affecting women of feminism. That doesn't even concern her, she's saying. She's saying, she admitted it. She can't even hide this. You can't even hide this anymore now. That doesn't even concern you. What she should be saying is, both of them concern me. This male masculinity, which has been fueled by Western secularism, and Western secularism fueling feminism, this both concerns me, she should be saying, right? This is why I'm telling you. It does not concern her because she herself is a feminist. She herself, even if she denies being a feminist, and that's what they'll do, they'll deny being a feminist. But then they'll write articles where they start changing the scripture of the Quran, as we've demonstrated in our video. Watch the video, part 1, where she completely misconstrues the Quran in order that we do not weaponize certain hadith against women to say majority of them are in hellfire. She can't accept it.
The believing men and believing women are allies of one another. Like, that's what always strikes me. It's like when they speak down to Muslim women, when they
we are allies with one another, but she talks about Muslim sheikh as being female student rapists. What concerns her is the male young generation. And now they're talking about, how we're allies. We're allies. How we need to move the Muslim men back. Get back, Muslim men. Move out of the way. But now they're speaking, we're allies. We're allies. We need female representation now. We need women to speak to women, not men, but we're allies. See the manipulation.
Disregard female scholarship and they're mocking female scholarship. It's like, subhanAllah, you're literally doing the opposite of what Allah has commanded us to do. And it's feeding into Shaitan's plan, divide the believers. And in this case, it's a type of...
She says divide the believers, but she just said Muslim men have to stand back. So notice how they're playing the manipulation. She's saying, Shaitan came to divide the ummah, but she's saying Muslim men have to stand back now. We need Muslim men. That was in the past. That used to work in the past. Now it doesn't work anymore. We need now female representation. We need women to speak to women now. We can't have men speaking to women anymore. Right? But her sheikh is a man. She learns from a man herself.
Partisanship based on gender, it's a suspicion. Like as we said, the ayah also says, Inna ba'da dhanni itham. But it's feeding into all of that, unfortunately, and it genuinely is harming not just, as you said, the scholars and the students of knowledge, but it is harming the everyday Muslim who should be taught something completely different, who should be taught, the respect and love for one another, the uplifting of one another. It is harming the everyday Muslim who should be taught something completely different, who should be taught, the respect and love for one another, the uplifting of one another, the empowering of one another, both men and women, to do better for our ummah.
But hang on a minute, now you're saying both men and women to do better for our ummah, but before you just said men have to stand back. Really? That's what she said. So do we stand back? Or do we both do better for the ummah? Which one? No. We know what they mean. Men only speak to men. Women, sheikhs speak to women. Is that the division you want to create? But then you say men and women have to do better. They're playing around. See how they're playing around with the din.
Alex, we've got a long way to go, and we have a lot of things to correct in the ways that we engage with each other, and the way that female presence by itself, like not even scholarship or leadership, just female presence is looked at and dealt with.
And notice, folks, now, if a Muslim organization has a male panel, or if there's a Muslim organization sets up an event, and it's only men. It's only men. You know what these feminists say? These ones here, these shukhak, these sheikhs, female sheikhs. They say, how dare you, there's no female representation. How dare you, this is not unacceptable in this time and period. So Muslim men are now afraid to do only Muslim dawah. They're too afraid to do this because they're being criticized by these feminists because, there's no female representation. How dare you put a pamphlet up and there's only Muslim men speakers? But these are the same feminists that were telling men, you need to step back. You need to step back. You got to stop talking to the sisters. We have to now speak and talk to the sisters. See the double standards. See the hypocrisy.
May Allah guide us all and help us live the Quran instead of doing the opposite.
Amen.
Female presence by itself, like not even scholarship or leadership, just female presence is looked at and dealt with. May Allah guide us all and help us live the Quran instead of doing the opposite.
Amen. Allahumma ameen. Ya Rab. We definitely need the balance of the Quran and Sunnah.
Yep. Nothing. We're not going to win any games or any wars or anything without that. All right, Barakallah.
Look. They call it, it's a war now. Before they were saying men and women are allies. Now it's a war. With the Quran and Sunnah, we've got to win a war against them. We were allies before. We were allies. Now we're going to war with the men.
Hello, Fiki.
Now, I believe the person that she was speaking to was Zainab. I believe that was the publisher of More Women in Hell. Okay? Now, when you go to Zainab bin Yunus, you click on that. Okay? So I typed in Zainab bin Yunus. That was the interviewer. It says, have a look here. There's a link below in orange. It says www.thesalafifeminist.blogspot. They were saying they're not Muslim, as they're not feminists, sorry. They were saying they're not feminists. Have a look. She says Zainab bin Yunus. Zainab bin Yunus is a young woman who finds constant inspiration in the lives of Sahabiyat and other great women in Islamic history. Not inspiration from great men in Islamic history. No, great inspiration from great women in Islamic history. She hopes that every Muslim is able to identify with the struggle of these inspirational women and follow in their footsteps to become a part of the new generation of powerful Muslim women. She means powerful Muslim feminists. And the link is called the Salafi Feminist Blogspot. I click on it and it looks like it's been closed. You go to advanced, it's got like a protective blog. It says the blog has been removed. What are they hiding? What are they hiding? They removed it. Look, the Salafi feminist. They were saying they weren't feminists before. Have a look at this. Zainab bin Yunus. This is from the Huffington Post. Zainab bin Yunus Aki, the Salafi feminist, is a golf steampunk Batman-obsessed Canadian Muslim woman. She writes about Islam, historical Muslim women, and challenging cultural Muslim ideas about gender roles. Her work has appeared in sisters' magazines. So notice, they're saying that we're being targeted as feminists, and she's a feminist herself. She blatantly admits it. Allah. Is that why she deleted it? To hide her blog, Feminist blog? So that's it, folks. This is the dilemma we're facing. How they are wolves in sheep's clothing. Wolves in sheep's clothing. Brothers and sisters, there is an attack against traditional Islam. They are raising feminists to go and study in Saudi schools to try and become scholars, to then set a platform. Because if they're just random Australian revert, who's going to listen to their poison? No one. But if she goes to Saudi Arabia, gains a bit of scholarship and comes back, and then she can say, I have a BA in Masters in Islamic Studies and Arabic, then people are going to start listening and start giving her a platform. This is the deception. This is the deception that they're using now to gain that platform. And they're using it to drive feminism.